Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining me for episode 218 of The Virtual Couch. I am your host, Tony Overbay. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, certified mindful habit coach, writer, speaker, husband, father of four, ultramarathon runner, and creator of The Path Back, an online report. The show must go on, an online pornography recovery program that is helping people reclaim their lives from the harmful effects of pornography. If you or anyone that you know is struggling to put pornography behind you once and for all, and trust me, it can be done in a strength-based, hold the shame, become the person you always wanted to be way, then head over to pathbackrecovery.com, and there you will find a short ebook that describes 5 common mistakes that people make when trying to put pornography behind them once and for all. Again, that's pathbackrecovery.com. And why must the show go on? Because I'm recording this right before my good friend Julie Lee comes on to talk about her new book. And so I promised myself I'm recording this video and audio, and that I would plow through. So hopefully that did not sound unprofessional in the recording, in the intro, in the opening. But also, my website has been updated. It happened over the weekend. I've been waiting on this for so long. Please head over to tonyoverbay.com, and there you will find my free parenting course. You will find a way to sign up for a newsletter. You'll be the first person to find out about just a wonderful program, and a magnetic marriage program, how to communicate better with your spouse, that is coming in the not too distant future. We're putting the final touches on that, and I couldn't be more excited about that. Really, there's been so much effort that has gone on to this, and it is going to help you communicate better with your spouse. But so much more on that coming up. And you can also find me on Instagram at Virtual Couch, and on Facebook, Tony Overbay, licensed marriage and family therapist. But today, actually, updating my website, there's a little bit of an ironic thing. I'm talking to Julie Lee about her brand new book that is been available for pre-order. I've already pre-ordered mine. She even has this really cool place, Cedar Fort, her publisher. I'll have to include a link where I ordered it, and it came with a pretty neat I See You bracelet. So I never had any merchandise like that with my book. But where I was going with that is my website, it was just updated, and I never even had anything on there about how to buy my book, which is horrible, because it's been a #1 bestseller in the sexual health and recovery category on Amazon since its release, which was the end of 2019. So that is how bad I needed to update my website. So it is updated, and I'm sure Julie Lee is coming right out of the gate. Probably her website has all kinds of stuff about her book on there, but I am really excited to have her on here. She is the host of a very real, very raw podcast called I See You. And that podcast no doubt led to her book deal. I'm sure we're going to get into that, talk about that today. And if you are already familiar with Julie, you'll know why this is going to be a great interview. She has an incredible way of helping people feel seen, understood, getting the best out of her interviews, and also knowing the right balance on how much she shares with her guests, how much she gets out of her guests. And I jotted down a few things here. Julie first came on my show April 11th of 2019. And in her episode, she spoke beautifully about her journey through some pretty rough patches with anxiety and depression. And those are things that she had never struggled with earlier in her life. So that was very touching, very raw. And there's actually a part of that interview that made it into her book. So I won't talk about that now, but it was a moment. It was a very real moment that I will never forget. And I was honored to see that it made it into her book. And then I was on her show on April 26th of 2019. And I remember that one well because my daughter was getting married that day. And I remember listening to it. I don't like listening to myself on interviews, but we talked about the name of that episode was When Your Marriage is Hurting. And we got to talk a lot about emotionally focused therapy, the couples therapy model that I love. And again, this is back in April of 2019. So I was just happy to be able to talk about marriage and talk about communication. And ironically, it was released on the day that my daughter was getting married to my wonderful son-in-law, Mitch. So that was kind of fun to be able to hear that morning of the run, or the wedding. I was out on a run listening to that. So I will not take any more time. Let's get to my interview with Julie Lee, talking about her book, I See You, a rallying cry to save us all. So let's get on to the interview with Julie Lee. Okay, I'm going to see if I can get through this BetterHelp.com read as quickly as I can. If you've listened to the podcast by now, you know that I am a huge fan of therapy. I'm a therapist, for Pete's sake. So I recommend that everybody give it a try. I really do. We're all kind of hanging on to some things, maybe dealing with things, especially in this worldwide pandemic. Our brains aren't designed to not know what is coming next. And we've had a long period now of not really knowing what's next. So if you would like to try therapy, but you don't know where to start, if you've reached out to therapists in your area and it's hard to get in, because that can actually happen. The more we're breaking down the stigma for mental health, which I am so grateful for, the more difficult it can become to get into a therapist's office. I know that I have not been in a position, unfortunately, to take new clients in many, many moons. And I know a lot of therapists are in that same position. So go check out what close to 1 million people have done now. Go to betterhelp.com. And if you go to betterhelp.com/virtualcouch, you'll get 10% off your first month of counseling. There's a broad range of expertise in BetterHelp's counselor network, which might not even be available in your local area, depending on where you live. And it's available for clients worldwide. You get a licensed therapist from your state in your area, and you can log into your account anytime, send a message to your counselor, and you can start communicating in sometimes as soon as 24 hours. They have a wonderful sliding scale if you can't afford therapy, and they work with people that are struggling with all kinds of things: anxiety, depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, you name it. And you can get help at betterhelp.com/virtualcouch. Again, 10% off your first month if you go through betterhelp.com/virtualcouch. What are you waiting for? You deserve to put yourself in the best position you can be to take on all of the challenges of life. So betterhelp.com/virtualcouch. All right, let's get back to the show. We're recording. All right, Julie, we're on.
Hey,
thanks for getting up super early. That was really nice.
you're so welcome.
But you told me you've already worked out this morning.
I did. It's true. I mean, it wasn't a huge workout, but I did some. I lifted a few weights. Yeah.
A few of them? All right. Yeah. I was going to say, you look very strong.
Thank you. From my face, it's the cheekbones, it's the earlobes, right?
But that's the hey, everybody go watch this on YouTube, because I'm gonna put this up there. Yeah, go find it on YouTube. So we're talking about your book. I'm so excited. I'm honored.
Thank you. Do you want to see it?
Yeah, I do actually. This is really cool. Let's see it. Whoa. Okay, that looks really cool. Let's see the back.
Didn't they do a good job?
They did an amazing job. And the back. Look at that. Okay, it has a front, a back, the whole thing. Well done.
It has a side.
It
opens.
Okay, and there's pages.
It can learn tricks, you know.
It's flipping up and down. I've always wanted to learn to spin a book. I watched a guy do that on a YouTube video one time, but I haven't learned how to do it very well. And neither has Julie. But that's
Rob can spin a basketball real good, so maybe I'll see if he can spin.
Okay, there you go. Right, I think that would be a really fun marketing thing.
It would be a marketing thing, yeah.
It would. Welcome back to the Virtual Couch.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, I couldn't wait. And so I just want to jump right in. I want to just are you okay with that?
Yeah. You know. Yes, you know.
Okay, I do know this. So, I mean, was your life's ambition to write a book or no? Or just tell me stories about how this book came about.
So like when I was a little kid, I always was like, I'm going to be a children's book author. So yeah, I guess kind of when I was that age, but definitely not this book.
Yeah.
You know, like I outline this sometimes on my own podcast, and, you know, I refer to it a little bit in the book, but growing up, I grew up with mental illness in my home. My dad had a mental illness, and when I left, I loved my parents dearly, but I was also super afraid because I saw a lot of the kind of the collateral damage that did to our family. And so when I left my house, I just I don't even want to hear the word depression. I don't want to hear panic attack, any of those things. It hit too close to home. I took a psychology class in high school, and I remember hearing some kids, you know, make some jokes about, oh, I'm bipolar or things like that. And just as a 17-year-old kid, I was just like, don't ever say that. Like, you have no idea what you're talking about. So I was obviously really sensitive to it. And so for me to end up writing a book where where it's not all about that, but I do refer to some of my experiences with that, is pretty shocking. But yeah, it's crazy how it came to be. I never intended to write a book. I've had a couple people mention the idea to me just in passing that have written their own books. They're like, well, you should write a book. And I'm like, well, easy for you to say. I don't really want to.
Right.
But then, I woke up one morning I couldn't sleep and I woke up and I wrote an introduction to this book, and I just put the title I See You, same as my podcast. That's
Well,
easy.
I would say, how long ago was that? Was that after you had a few episodes under your belt, or was this something that had happened long ago?
Oh, this was in January of this year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, and then I just set it aside, and some interesting things happened. Like 2 weeks later, the president of the CEO of the publishing company that published my book added me on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't message me, or he just added me, and I was like, well, that's kind of bizarre. And I just told my husband, and we were headed on a trip somewhere, and he's like, just message him, just do it. And at the time I thought, well, maybe I could get I have a self-published illustrated book, which we talked about in our
That's
first
what I thought. Yeah. When you're saying you've never been an author, I'm wait a minute. I think Julie has one. Okay.
Well, but that once again, that was like not meant to be. And I don't mean that. That's so annoying for people that have tried to get published before. And I totally recognize that. And thank you for snorting. I've been trying to find a way that I can snort in this episode too. I just sort of like to snort, but it's got to be natural. It's got to be natural. Anyways, and so I was like, well, maybe I can talk to him about that, like going through a publisher with it and not just having it be self-published. So I took that, and then it's like, oh, sorry. So I message him, and I'm like, hey, can I pick your brain about this? It felt like, it's like Frozen, right? It was the next right thing. Like,
there you go.
It just felt right. And Rob told me to do it, so I did it.
Yeah.
And so he messaged me back, and he's like, hey, yeah, let's meet in my office on Wednesday. And I'm like, all right. So I was like, I didn't think you'd say yes. Anyways, so then I took that, and then right before I went, I was like, I'm just going to print off that intro and take it. And I like shoved it in my purse. Like, I'm not even going to bring it out probably, but who knows? And
so so you were going over there to talk about broccoli then, right? That was your children's book, was broccoli Punzel?
Yeah, well, that was the easiest. It's already written, right? I
Right,
was like,
okay.
Let's see what they say, right?
Okay.
Like, what do I have to lose? And then we got there, and then I got there, and there was the auxiliary manager. I hope that's what she's called. I'm so sorry if it's not. She was there, and she was like taking notes during the meeting, and I was like, I am so glad I didn't know how intense this was going to be, or else I would have been terrified to come. I don't get very nervous. I'm pretty like on the fly. Yeah. But they were very, like, why would you want to publish with us? What is this like and stuff? And they were not pulling any punches. And then I did end up showing them my intro. I was like, well, why not? This is already scary. So here's my intro. What do you think? And they said, is it written? And I'm like, nope, not written. And they're like, well, do you have a table of contents? Nope. Mm-hmm. They're like, all right, well, I don't even want to look at this. You send me a table of contents today, and then I'll look at it. Wow. And so I did, and they said, if we're interested after that, we'll have you write one chapter from the table of contents, and then we'll read that and then see if we want you to write the book or not. So I sent them the table of contents. Later that, I like scrambled together with my sister-in-law in our kitchen as our, kids are running everywhere like, blah. And I sent them the table of contents, and 2 weeks later, they didn't even have me write a chapter. They just sent me a contract and said, can you write it by June 1st?
From the table of contents?
Yeah, from the table of contents. Wow. So I just sent them, which is different than what it ended up being, right? Okay. Like totally ended up being different, but they were okay with that. But yeah, they said, can you write it by June 1st? And of course, this is before we knew COVID was going to happen. This was beginning of February. And in the meantime, I had a niece pass away, and we were out at her funeral. And it was not like the ideal perfect time you think of to process all this. But once again, it was just always the next right thing. Yeah. So I said, yes, of course I can write it by June 1st. Absolutely. Sure. And then, I did it. And it was totally insane. I was like, 3.5 months, it'll be totally crazy. Oh. We'll have frozen pizza every night. It'll be good. Yeah. And then COVID happened, which was awesome and hard because I have a 5 and a 3-year-old who want me all the time. And there was nowhere for them to go play or be babysat by, or because quarantine happened. And so it was a wild experience writing a book. And my husband had to take over my office because he works from home now. And so I didn't have my space. And so it was like writing it, at the kitchen island while I'm like throwing food at kids and, trying to help them with their books. And so it was wild, but I prayed a lot, like just laid on the floor begging for help, and for better or for worse, it's here,
It's better. It's for better. It's a wonderful book, but I would love the concept of, I guess we'll give Frozen credit for that next right thing. But I'm a big fan of people that will go so far ahead in their minds that they won't even start. Well, if they say yes, then I'm going to have to write it. I don't have time. I don't know how to do it. And you can watch the brain just come up with all these stories of why, so I might as well not start, so I love that because you could have always said, I need more time, or this
And a
isn't.
lot of people told me that. A lot of people told me,
Okay.
you need to be telling them to push back the deadline. Like, this is insane. It's not fair to you. And I just felt like, they're taking the chance on me too. And why can't I do it? And
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
And
amazing.
I had a therapist once tell me, she's like, this is years ago when I was in a much different place. She would just always tell me, she'd listen to me and she'd be like, you're a really good storyteller. You're a
Okay.
great storyteller. And
So
it's
would
like
you
what
tell
you said,
yourself that?
all
Yeah.
the stories.
Okay. I mean, so were you telling yourself that in your head when you would get down? That, hey, I'm a good storyteller. I can do this. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Okay.
tell myself that now. I'm like, oh, I'm being a really good storyteller.
Good.
Like, that's a really interesting story you just came up with, Julie, but it's not reality.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like that a lot. I mean, I feel like there's the concept of a mantra that, I can appreciate when people are saying, they wake up every morning and, hey, you can do it. But then sometimes there's a little bit of data that can show that will actually at times make people feel worse if all of a sudden they're like, but you didn't do it, but I really like the ones where it's hey, you're a good storyteller, or you're a nice person, or you're a fun, you're a fun this, or so I really like that. I mean, I think that those can really help push people along. So that's really nice to hear that's
Yeah.
part of this book. All right, there's a couple of things that I just took some notes on. One of those is in the intro. You talk right out of the gate. You just say, all right, my purpose in writing this book is to bring stark clarity on how badly we as a collective society need to engage with each other in a real, authentic way if we're to combat the onslaught of isolation, loneliness, and even suicide. And you said we need to look each other in the eyes when we speak, touch each other on the shoulder when we greet. I love that. And at worst, loneliness is a life or death situation. At best, it creates an unsatisfactory life. I'm confident that human compassion and connection is the antidote to our disconnected culture. Julie Lee, tell me more. I think you just summed up so much about, I had a nephew and I over the weekend that were somewhere, and we were walking by this couple, and they were both just sitting there together, and they were just on their phones. And I'm sure that they were thinking they were having a wonderful evening. But I just said to him, man, imagine if phones had never been invented, they would be talking right now. And I just find that so fascinating. So tell me about that intro.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I go on to talk about how, it's not just kids, and that example is perfect, but it's not just kids that grew up with, getting a phone when they were super little that are struggling. It's adults like me, and I would assume you even times have to work against that, where we didn't grow up with phones, and yet we are struggling with that same just disconnect and addiction to just numbing and instant gratification. And I really think it's harming our ability to connect with people in real life.
Yeah, it is. And then I know
Like,
it's
to
a
call
big,
someone on the phone now is so just like, ugh,
oh,
uncomfortable. We're just squirming out of our skins.
yeah. And I think that is, I still even say that now, that I make the joke all the time that I think that I didn't realize the phone does that still, that it does make a call. And so, and I think that's kind of funny. But then if I think, man, how often do I really use the phone to do that?
Right. And I think that just for me and my experiences in my life, that real just connect in person was life saving. Just having someone look me in the face and like see me, in my sweats and top knot and sweating and crying and panic attack, just having someone look at me and just be like, you're going to get out of this. We're going to get you out of this
Mm,
was life changing and saving. And I know that like a text message is great, and it's not that there's no power there,
yeah.
but it's different. It's not the same. It's
Yeah.
not the
So are you
same.
okay? I mean,
Oh, go ahead.
oh, I was to say that the name of your podcast, the name of your book, I See You. I know you talk about it a little bit in there, but maybe for the sake of maybe those who haven't heard of you, which they should have, you've been on the podcast before, and there was a very touching moment in the episode you were on in mine.
Don't make me cry again, Tony.
I
Over.
know, right? But it's in your book, and we're going to talk about it, and I'm so excited about that. But so talk about just the I See You in general. Tell me more about that. Where's that come from?
So I have a prop here. Look how
Okay.
prepared I was at 6:30
Look
a.m.
at
So
that.
this is a bracelet that I was given that says I see you on it. So during my journey, my therapist in a totally HIPAA approved way connected me with another patient that she said, I just think you two would really hit it off and really connect on some of the things you've experienced. have some similar things in your background. And I met this girl, her name is Brittany Coyato, and we met at a park. I creepily like stalked her blog and then emailed her, and she was kind of cold in her first email back. Not cold, but just very not stern, stoic. That's what I'm looking
Okay.
for. And I turned out to find out she thought I was like gonna sell her some herbal supplement or something, right? And so she was like, I don't know about this Julie Lee. Anyways, but so we met at a park with our kids, and we just immediately, it was like soul to soul, we understood each other. And I think it was about a year later on my birthday, she gave me this bracelet and it says, I see you. And she had been to an Idina Menzel concert, and Idina Menzel has a song called I See You. And the lyrics are beautiful, but it's just the message between us of I see you, I get you. And I'm going to get choked up again, but like, I witness your life, and I know how hard you work, and that that you are constantly trying to overcome, and that just I know you individually, and I see you. And she can just text me that and just be like, I can just say something about, and she can just be like, girl, I see you. And I just know it's like, I get you. I'm looking you in the face. I'm not like, you are worth my time. You are worth my energy. I am present with you. And if you're a spiritual person, whether it's a higher power or whatnot, also just the idea that like someone up there is seeing me. Like I see you right now when you're in that, you're listening to that speaker or whatever, and it's not clicking with you, and maybe like you're having some shame demons. Like I see you right now. Like I got you. You're not alone. And that for me was, even though I was already on doing great and just recovering from a lot of hard things, that's a really great reminder for me. And then it goes further, kind of like in the 12-step addiction program, where the popular one, I shouldn't even say that because you have your own
No,
addiction.
you're good. This is great. Yeah, I've facilitated many of those. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so in the 12 steps, the last step, I believe, is, you then go to help others, right?
Yeah.
And so that bracelet is a reminder to me of I see you, of like, I need to be doing that for other people, that when they're talking to me, I'm looking at them in the face.
Yeah.
I'm engaging, I'm being present with them. And even if it makes them uncomfortable, because
Yeah.
they're not used to people wanting to talk to them at the grocery store, because we don't talk anymore at the grocery store. That's so awkward.
No, we don't.
But just that I'm going to do that for humankind, because it's changed and it's a much more fulfilling life. Life's so much better.
It really is. I have to tell you, my kids will at times kind of even say, Dad, can we just get through the drive-through without you asking them about their day or what's their biggest sale, or but I think at their
What's
core,
their biggest sale? I like Taco Bell, you ask them?
yeah, it's crazy like how much people do. Yeah. Yeah, we were dropping my daughter off back at Rexburg just a weekend or two ago, and the Walmart person, we're going big, with stuff we're going to take back to her dorm, and I get chatting, and then it's like, all right, what's your biggest sale? How many carts? What have you had to do? What's that? And it's so fun, it really is. I see them. I have to tell you, I've after your episode, then I had the confirmation bias. All of a sudden, I'm hearing or seeing the phrase "I see you" everywhere, and I listened to some kind of junky novel. I always like to listen to one smart thing and one just fun thing while I run in the mornings, right? And there was one where they get toward the end, and it's somebody saying, "We all want to be seen. We all want to be heard." I'm like, "That's Julie." Right. And then this is the best one. We're down at a basketball tournament last year down in LA. And there's this wonderful coach, and he yells out to my son, who's playing some really good defense. Nobody likes to praise defense, especially in this summer basketball, this travel league. And he says, "I see you, Jake. I see you doing work." And I thought, my wife and I say that all the time now, I see you doing work. And I just thought, oh, it's once you're aware of it, it's so neat to see that or hear that. And I like what you're saying. Pass it along. Be that person, right?
Mm-hmm. You're
Hey,
making me curious just about basketball.
I know, right?
My husband played basketball, though. It's got a soft place in my heart. That's really special. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be. That's the thing. And the book isn't just for people that are like, at their very, what's the word for that? Like hanging off the cliff, like
Right.
they're, the last. That's why I talk about, like, at best, it's an unsatisfactory life to not see each other.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying like you won't survive this life, but I think it's a pretty sad one,
Yeah.
I think you're deserving of more than that as a human being.
Yeah, no, it gives a nice little chemical bump even when we do make eye contact. I mean, there's a little bit of a dopamine rush, you know? And I like what you said
Oh,
earlier.
why didn't you tell me that so I could put that in the book? I would have
Oh, that would
sounded
have been good,
smart.
right? But here's where I said earlier, when we were warming up, that
My
you.
kid just walked in.
Oh, that's nice. Tell them
You want
hi.
to say hi real quick because you're already here?
Okay, and yet another reason. Go on YouTube.
This is
Hey,
happening.
buddy. How are you?
He just really rolled out of bed. You want to go snuggle with Dad? This is Sam. Okay, can you go snuggle with Dad? Oh, so I'm actually doing an interview for my book. Remember the cool book Mom wrote? Yeah.
Yeah,
Can you
I
go
wrote a
snuggle with
really cool
Daddy?
book.
I think so. No? Okay, Mom, this is about to get awkward. Can you please? Does he just stay here? I don't know. What do we do with this? What have you done? Has this ever happened before?
No, not yet, but I mean, this is fun, right?
Okay. Can you shut the door? Do you want to just sit on my lap? Okay, why don't you just go shut the door?
I love the vulnerability. I was like, what do you do? I don't know. We're doing it, right? This is part of now in the world of acceptance and commitment therapy.
I wrote the book sometimes with my kids on the lap. So
There you go. This is part of our private experience. This is happening right now.
Because he's so tired, he's probably gonna be real quiet. So
Exactly. And again, boy, if there's ever been a time to promote my YouTube channel, it will be now. You can see the bracelet. You can see my beard, of all things. You can see your son sitting in your lap, all kinds of things, right?
this is it. Yep, this is it.
So and before we started, a little bit of a warm up, I had referred to you as a wizard, and it's because you had said something that you said was pre-pandemic, but you said, hey, many of us a little lost right now. We're somewhat disconnected from reality. We're not sure what's real, what to believe. Yeah, do you remember what was that about when you were writing that part of the book?
I just believe that so much. And yeah, it's interesting. I like all of this came to be before COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a humbling experience to write this book during COVID because I'm like, holy crap, like it's like what you said. You're like, well, that's the understatement of all time or whatever. It's so true. It's so true. Just with COVID now, I mean, I don't want to be, I mean, I do want to be self-promoting. Like I do want my book to do well or whatever, for people to like think it's awesome, obviously. But honestly, I just feel like this message is more important than ever now with COVID. That we're just scrambling to make meaning of our life right now. And I think a lot of that is because we're even more isolated from each other than ever. And
Yeah.
some of that is, I'm not saying some of that isn't necessary, but I think it's doing a trick to our brains of just, what do I do in this world now? I know it's been tough for me,
Yeah.
and I feel like I'm a pretty mentally aware person of my needs and checking in with myself, taking care of myself, doing what I have my minimums every day. And it's been a trip. It's been a trip to not be able to be with people. And, I think it's even more than that. I think there's just a lot of angst in the world right now.
Yeah.
People are really worried of offending each other. People don't know how to, people that I love and know pretty well. I'm afraid that certain topics might come up and I'm afraid I don't know like what to say or what that means or how they'll take it. Or, what if I'm wearing a mask or what if I forget my mask or what are they thinking of that? And I think so many people are feeling like that where they're just like, more than ever, they're like, I don't know how to communicate with people right now because I'm like terrified to say the wrong thing.
Totally. I'm gonna record a little bit of this right now of what we're talking about, and I love the fact that your son is on your lap. But I'll probably throw this up on a nice Instagram story because I really like this part that we're talking about. I find that even in my office, yeah, the more that the world is kind of continuing with who knows what is next, our brains aren't really designed to have such uncertainty, and so we are kind of trying to find anything that we can get a hold of that makes sense. So I'm seeing that on a daily basis. So I appreciate what you're saying with that. That makes it really difficult. Hey, can we talk about, I want to talk about the part where you, talk about self-promoting, the part where you mentioned our interview in your book.
Yes.
Yeah, right. So we'll try not to make you cry again. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that. I mean, I can read some of this, which I think was you said, I've been interviewed many times about my experiences of overcoming anxiety and depression. And you said, I remember a specific interview. Tony Overbay, licensed marriage and family therapist, was interviewing me for his podcast, The Virtual Couch. What do you remember about that interview?
I remember it really well. I just remember that you started talking about the feeling for you as a therapist when you're sitting across from someone and they don't want to be here anymore. They just don't want to live anymore. And they're really kind of contemplating that.
Yeah.
And, I've been there before, and I've been in that dark hole, and I remember that loneliness well. But just, you said the phrase something like, it's like everything's off the table.
Yes.
All hands on deck, something like that.
Yeah.
And I just felt so emotional because, and pre-therapy and pre kind of dealing with, I've never been given an official diagnosis, but like PTSD-like symptoms, I guess we'll just say. There were so many things I didn't want for my life, mental illness being one of them. And that's still hard. That's hard for me to even say. Like, I've never said I have a mental illness, just because I have past experience with that term and what that means to me and what my brain tells me about that. And I'm working through that. But at the end of the day, in my most isolated moments and between me and God and things, I feel like I have learned that more than anything, we are worth anyone's time, and we are worth staying. And it doesn't matter. There's just so many things we worry about that just don't matter.
Exactly.
And like, that you feel of worth and that you're irreplaceable, that you are like, I love the idea of just like an IKEA box where they give you extra parts, right? I heard someone say this once, where it's like, God didn't do that. He wasn't like, oh, well, here are some extras that like we don't really need, but we'll put them in there just in case. Like, he didn't do that with people. I don't believe that. And I just believe, the differences we have, like, it's all on purpose.
Yeah.
And I'm rambling here. I'm like a little thrown off having my
kid. Right. I feel bad. I'm sitting here. Hey,
it's okay. No, it's okay.
Dark side that we had in our interview. Well, your son sits on your lap, right? So, yeah.
Yes, yeah. And but I really felt that when you said that. I was like, man, if that isn't truth right there, of just all hands on deck. Nothing matters. It doesn't matter the type of therapy. It doesn't matter.
No.
Just like, whether you've showered or not, it doesn't matter whether you've made big mistakes. Right now, all hands on deck, like, you are meant to be here.
Yeah.
And until you feel that again, like, I'm going to hold your hand and we're going to get this done.
Well, that's always, and so I always say, when somebody's contemplating not wanting to be around anymore, then that is all right, at this point, I don't care if you thought you were supposed to be an attorney, if you thought that if you want to go live on the beach for the rest of your life, if you want to wear plaid shorts and a floral shirt the rest of your life, who cares? And I would love it if people didn't have to get to that point where they felt that that's where they were at, for people to finally say, okay, hey, whatever you need. And I think people are afraid to just say, no, this is what I need right now. And because this is how bad I feel. And so I remember that too. And then I think, I quickly changed the subject, which was not a good therapist, because I was like, wait a minute.
No, it's okay. I probably freaked you out. I was like, I'm not trying to like use this as like free therapy, Tony. You got me right there,
No,
I feel that. And it just feels so heartwarming to hear someone else say that, who has, you have the medical background and you have all your ideas, I'm sure, and all your knowledge. But at that point, none of that matters to you, right? None of that matters. You just want that person to know that they need to stick around, whatever you got to do to make that happen.
Yeah. So you had also talked about, and maybe we can do a couple of these, a little bit of a speed round, comparing challenges. I feel like the comparison thing is just something that, again, I run into every day. That's why I loved your book. I mean, it's got a lot of almost every chapter had I didn't know if you knew this, but you were almost hitting some therapy topics that I get to hear every day that comes up, which is really kind of nice.
Oh, yeah, that is nice.
Yeah. So comparing challenges. I mean, how often do you see that in your life or those around you? Or what do you say to people that talk about that?
Oh, I just think it can be so destructive to compare our pain, to compare our challenges, both for self-compassion and compassion for other people. Just, it kind of is a enemy to compassion in general, because the problem is, when we're hurting, it's so easy to look at someone that we think has something harder and we're like, man, I don't deserve to be hurt. Like, I'm an idiot. I don't need to, like, why should I have compassion on myself? Like, look how much harder their life is, which isn't helpful and doesn't like get us to progress. It's makes us feel worse about ourselves, and then we just don't progress. And also, comparing challenges in looking at someone else and saying like their life doesn't, my life looks a lot harder than theirs.
Yeah.
So, they don't have room to have the pain that they're expressing. I think, I think I won't go any further with that, but I think we've seen that a lot lately, in the last few months, just people really trying to compare their pain and using it as an excuse sometimes not to have compassion for other people. Because sometimes it's easier. It feels less complicated to just have it be black and white and just, have all the answers of my life's harder, yours isn't, I can just be mad at you. I don't have to deal with your complicated pain and the way that affects me. And maybe I have to look at myself and say, I haven't done things perfectly. And, but when we know better, we can do better, right? Like,
no, that's all.
Punish ourselves for things we didn't know. And so we just don't have to compare pain. We can just say like, I deserve to be able to say like, this is hard for me, period. And just have someone be like, I'm sorry. I see you. Right?
Yeah.
Girl, I see you. And then on a separate note, just be like, and this was hard for you. And I'm sorry. And I see you. We don't then have to be like, okay, let's stack them against each other, which is impossible.
It is.
Right? Like different life circumstances, different upbringing, different biology, there's just no point.
And then even, okay, and I love everything you're saying there, because I always go into that, they call them private experiences and acceptance and commitment therapy, my modality of choice, where you're the only version of you that's ever lived with all of your nature and your nurture and birth order and DNA, abandonment, rejection, all that. So then, that's why anyone trying to tell you what to do can be so difficult, because it's like, well, they don't really understand, or, right. And then I often will say, okay, let's say that we are trying to compare our challenges. Then at the end, what do you get? A t-shirt or maybe a little trophy, but it's like, okay, great, you win. But anyway, let's tell me more about that. What's that like for you? Or I see you. I mean, that exactly. Which I think leads to another one. And then this is a big favorite of mine as well. You said saving ourselves first. So this is, I've got my whole emotional baseline theory, which is about self-care. And I feel like this one people can say, but that's selfish. So give me the Julie Lee, I see you, wonderful, amazing book version of saving yourselves first.
I don't remember what I wrote. Good.
I love your honesty. And even in my book, they're like, you remember in chapter 6 where you say this? And I'm like, not really. I don't remember there were 6 chapters.
Like, could you read a few more lines and then I'll really remember.
Oh, Julie, just wait till you get a little bit down the road. Now I hate being that guy, as a published author, Julie, let me tell you, I love when somebody's like, when I'm like, I said that? Oh, wow. That sounded pretty good.
I've done that a little, so I actually haven't sat down and read my whole book yet.
Yeah.
Which I know will be like a vulnerable experience, and I'll have to be really patient with myself just because it's, but I feel like, I don't know where I was going with that.
Save yourself first. Self-care. What's that like for Julie?
You can't help other people until you help yourself first. And we hear that a lot, but I don't think I understood the power of that until I really had to take care of myself first. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that was, having these babies, like walking into my living room and seeing these kids, probably when it was at its worst, my kids were like 8 months and 2, and just walking in there and looking at them and thinking, like, I feel almost completely incapable of caring for you right now. And you are completely innocent.
Yeah.
And really learning, like, it's time to pull up my bootstraps and figure this out and do whatever I have to do, because I have stewardship over you. Yeah. And I'm feeling incapable to care for you properly right now. And so that means I have to do, and that means even though maybe I don't like myself right now, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's like everything's off the table, right? Like whatever I have to do to be able to help you. And as I did start to care for myself, that self-love did start to return. And I was like, oh no, I'm worthwhile. It's not just for my kids, it's for me too. But that was the motivation of that. You cannot help other people until you help yourself first.
Yeah.
And so even if loving yourself feels hard, and I don't know how to say this because I don't want this to be a shaming thing, but if you really love the people around you, I think that's the best thing you can do for them, is to learn to love yourself and take care of yourself, because then you're going to be way more powerful in their lives and not be empty and have nothing to give. Because I had nothing to give. I was in the negative.
Yeah. And I'll do I'll make it 30 seconds or less of my emotional baseline. I feel like when all this stuff around you is heavy and icky, and your baseline of emotions is low, but all the decisions, your kids needing you, and all the things that need to happen are still there. And so, you show up one way or the other, and raising your emotional baseline or that self-care puts you in a spot to be able to meet those challenges better. So, and the way to get to there is that self-care. It's a little bit of a little exercise, a little bit of meditation, a little bit of reading, and it doesn't have to be a whole lot. And I feel like that puts people in a better spot to be a better parent or a better spouse or a better servant or those kind of things. So I love that you had that chapter in there. I think that was pretty amazing.
Thank you. You know what's interesting, Tony? I love your podcast. I'm a super fan.
You're very
I
kind.
think that's a first episode I listened to was about the emotional baseline.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, that is. It makes me happy.
All right.
Yeah,
It was a good one. I remember right where I was running when I was listening to it.
Nice.
I remember that. Yeah, it's a powerful episode. You probably mentioned it in more than one, but
yeah, but sometimes that it's funny where I don't know if you have this in your podcast, but sometimes I feel like, well, I've said that before, but it's as if everybody's listened to everything every minute and they remember it all, which I know they don't, right? Yeah.
I know. It's kind of a self-absorbing thing, right? You're like, just because it's on your brain all the time, so you think that, and then people are like, oh,
yeah.
No.
I told a fun story in the intro to this today, where my episode on your podcast, I really was grateful for, because I talked a lot about EFT and marriage and how to communicate better. And you released it the day that my daughter was getting married, and I listened to it on a run there the day of that wedding, which was kind of fun. So I remember where I was for that one too. So I did talk about our episodes at the intro, and I will have the links to those in the show notes of this page. And then this is going to be up on YouTube, and how fun that you've had your son here the whole time. Right?
I mean, it just is what it is. Like, for better, for worse. I'm like, I don't know how great this is for marketing, but this is real life. So it's meant to be. You know what? That's been my life. That's been my life. Is like, I do like that mantra of just like, maybe this is how it was supposed to be for whatever reason. Maybe this is how it was supposed to be. That's helped me a lot. With just different hiccups, because life never turns out how we plan, right? But I do love my kiddos, and I mean, and this is just truth, and it might sound cliche, but if things aren't good in my relationships here, then it doesn't really matter. If
I gotta say, what does it matter? Really doesn't. Yeah.
No.
All right, where do people find your book? Tell me where people can go. I will put a link to that too. But I've ordered the one that came with a cool little bracelet, which was kind of
fun. You got your bracelet?
Yeah.
Because it's good for dudes, right? It was so important. Man, it's so hard, right? When you're writing a book or podcast, or, I go to National Speakers Association as I'm trying to do more public speaking than I've done. And, you get it pounded into your brain. You have to know your audience. You have to know your audience. And when someone's, when you like talk to a speaker and they're like, oh, I can speak on anything. That's kind of a red flag usually. Like, like probably you're not the best, right? Right. And so it's been so hard with this book, because it's like, so, how many people have asked me like, so what's your audience? You need to know your audience as you're writing this book in 3.5 months. Like, you got to know it. Well, what's your podcast audience? And it's been so hard, because I'm like, but I really do want everyone to like, I see it in the youth. I see it in the middle age. I see older people even, like, I just feel like everyone needs this. So as much as I did try to narrow to my audience, it was really important to me that the ICU bracelet that came out with it, that it be something that dudes could wear too, because I'm like, man, men need it too. Yeah. They need it so bad. And I have so many men that follow my podcast that have shared their stories with me, that have been interviewed on my podcast, that like, they're needing it. They're needing it bad. I'll be rocking the bracelet. I'll take a picture. Send me a picture, please. I will. All right, Julie. The website, you asked where they can find it. Yeah, where can they find it? Yeah. So go to my website. I'm so sorry about this light. It's like, it's as if it's now you're going to talk about it, that the rays of sun have entered your and shined. Yeah, like artwork, right? There's a sun. Exactly. Yeah. It's julieleespeaks.com. Okay. And then we can go there. The ICUpodcast.com, which still takes you there, but just as I'm headed more towards speaking, we decided it would be important to have my name in it. So it's julieleespeaks.com. And yeah, you can order it from Amazon, or you can get the bracelet through the publisher with the book, and just all the options are there. So. Hey, Julie, what an honor. Best of luck. I know it's going to do well. I will have you on whenever to talk about anything. Thank you. Yeah. And all right. we have Sam on anytime to talk about anything? That's
Yes.
what I want to know.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So thanks, Sam. All right, hang tight here.